Alright students, fasten your seatbelts. This is probably the most difficult concept I've ever tried on a video. It is advanced, to say the least. So, we're going to take it slow, try our best. This might be difficult for a lot of you. Alright, you've been warned. Okay, so let's get into it. Surface area of a cone. And I'm going to say this formula, and then we'll get into the step-by-step, because believe me that we do have some steps. Okay, so in parentheses, radius plus the square root of height squared plus radius squared multiplied by pi multiplied by radius. Yee, tough one. Alright, here's a cone that I have acquired recently. Circular, comes to a point, hollow in the middle. We got that down. Okay. So, there's our cone. We'll be referring to that throughout the video. Step number 1 on how to find the surface area of a cone. Wrong card. First step, find the radius and find the height. It's kind of a background step for us. We want to make sure we get that out of the way first. I'm going to put everything in the proper spot here. Thanks for bearing with me. Find the radius and find the height. So I'm going to do that right now. And I'm going to start with the radius. We, of course, will use the circle on the bottom. I'm going to use centimeters. And let's see if we can get a good shot. I must go through the midpoint with my diameter. I'm going to approximate where that midpoint is. Let's see if we can see that at home. That is 10 centimeters on the dot. 10 centimeters is the diameter. You cut it in half, the radius is 5. The height I did earlier on. You have to measure the height from the edge, so to speak, of the circle to the middle point, right through the hollow, all the way to the tip here at the top. There's a good view of the tip. And I did that earlier, and I got 14 centimeters for that. So that's my background information. You do that first, because as you can see, radius and height come up throughout the formula. Now, let's go to step 2. Step 2. No, I chose to start here. You may choose. I wouldn't, but you may choose to do something else. Step 2, square the radius. Square it, multiply it by itself. We said the radius was 5. 5 squared is 25, because 5 times 5 is 25. Great. Radius is squared. There's my detail to it. 5 squared is 25. Wonderful. And if you're plugging it in as you go, that right there, the radius squared would be a 25. Wonderful. Next, step 3. Square the height. We measured earlier, the height was 14 centimeters. Personally, I think every mathematician needs to have up to 15 squared memorized. So 14 would fit the bill. 14 squared is 196. And if you're plugging it in as you go, which is not a bad idea, pretty advisable actually. Radius squared would be 25. Height squared would be 196. Radius would be 5. Radius would be 5. So that might be a good idea for those of you at home working on this, or those of you in a classroom working on this. My students, I would certainly advise it. Do it. Step number 4. Gets tricky now. You're going to add height squared plus radius squared. These are the previous 2 steps. We just did them. And if you recall, the radius was 5. Radius squared was 25. The height was 14. The height squared was 196. I now find the sum of those two numbers, 196 plus 25. Feel free to check my math if you will. 221 is what I get. So now, because you have to do what's in parentheses first. PEMDAS rules, order of operations rules. And we did the height squared with the exponents, and then we add them together. And we're going to get 221. You can probably already surmise what the next step is going to be. But step number 5 is you have to find the square root of step 4. Well, step 4, we got 221. Now you need to find the square root of that. 221 is not a perfect square. It's close to 15, though. 15 squared is 225. So we know our answer should be close to 15. A little less. I'm going to guess it's going to be about 14.86 when I round it up to 14.9. Oh, maybe I did that earlier. Oops. Yes, it is. It's square root of 221 is about 14.9. I did round. So, if you're filling it in, this part is now finished. That's the hard part. A lot of work there. And this part is equal to 14.9 about. So now, it gets a little easier. Step 6. You add the radius to step 5. So step 5 was right here. And now we're going to add that radius. What was that radius again? Oh, it was 5. That's right, because the diameter was 10. So 14.9 plus 5, we have 19.9 or 19 and 9/10. So now if you're following along, within the parentheses, we have now officially solved for it. It's 19.9. We have two things left. Some people like to go at it one way. Some people like to go at it another way. Some like to multiply pi and radius and then multiply that by what you get in the parentheses. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to multiply step 6 by pi. So I'm going to take this 19.9 right here that we just got for the whole parenthesis, and I'm going to multiply that by pi. And of course, I use a standard 3.14. We don't need to get into that fancy stuff today. We're just going to do a standard 3.14 pi. And so I apologize for the squeaky chair. That's something we don't want to hear on this video. But I multiply 19.9 times pi, a standard pi of 3.14. And I get approximately 62.49. And once again, why is it approximate? Well, first of all, I've already rounded for the square root of 221 earlier on. Pi is an infinite number. It is not exact. It's about. So when you multiply by pi, you're always going to get an about. You're never going to get the exact head-on answer. So I got 62.49. That's step 7. Holy smokes. But luckily there's only one left. Step number 8. Choo-choo. There it is. Multiply step 7 by the radius. So 62.49. Multiply it by 5, which was the radius. And there we are. Nice sound effects there. You check my math if you'd like. I did 62.49 times 5, and I get approximately 312.45, read mathematically as 312 and 45/100ths. So the surface area of this cone, let me get it in the shot here. There we are. Is approximately 312 and 45/100ths centimeters squared. Why squared? Because area and surface area are squared. Volume is cubed. And once again, this is certainly worth knowing. Surface area is what is on the outside of a figure. In this case, on the outside of the cone. Whereas volume is what would be on the inside of the hollow region. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go through this one more time for you. Step 1, find radius and find the height. We did that, we measured. We got a radius of 5 centimeters and a height of 14 centimeters. If you want to plug in, you plug in at that point. Square the radius. 5 times 5 was 25. In fact, I might even do a little bit of that. I'm not going to probably use this ever again. Why don't we just write on it? Let's do it. So find radius and find height. And I said that the radius was 5 centimeters and the height was 14 centimeters. So I would write it out. Let's get we got one of those, you see this is one of those bronze Sharpies. Those are pretty handy. I want to put in a radius of 5. Ooh, that's not coming in too well. Hopefully you can, ooh, I can hardly see that. I'm going to have to go back to the, back to black. And I'm not talking about that, I think, was it AC/DC? Do they have that album? I don't know. I'm not a big AC/DC fan. I know a lot of people like them. Not for me. Not for me. 5. Great. And now I can plug in 5 here. And I'm going to put the parentheses. And then I'm going to go 5 squared. That's what I know so far. And I also said that the height was 14 centimeters. So I can add that in as well. This is just the basics. This might not look pretty. That's okay. That's okay. Doesn't bug me any. And pi, of course, I'm going to use a standard 3.14. And I'm going to put that 5 in parentheses so we don't forget that we're multiplying those two. All right. So now, square the radius. 5 times 5, we do right here. That takes care of the radius squared. That would be 25. Great. Checks out. Step 3, square the height. 14 times 14 is 196. Must know your squares up to 15. There we go. I put the plus in. And then it gives away what step 4 is. You're going to keep with the parentheses. You're going to add height squared plus radius squared, step 2 plus step 3. I'm going to find the sum of those. I'm going to cross it out. The sum is 221. So I'm going to put 221. Oh, this might not look pretty at all, but that's okay. 221. I'm going to circle that for the folks at home. 221 is what I get out of there. There's my math once again. Find the square root of step 4. Voila. I did it in my head. I got about 14.9. Actually, that's not a hard one to do in your head because it's 225 is 15 squared, and that's 221 is very close. I actually have a video on if you want to master imperfect square roots and how to find the decimal reading of them. I have a video on that. It's a good video too. For advanced students only. So I can now cross this whole section out here. I've solved it. It's 14.9. I'm going to put that right here. We are finished. 5 plus 14.9 I do next. I add the radius, which was 5. 5 plus 14.9, the sum was 19.9. Boy, we're really coloring this up today. That's okay. I'm going to put it up here even. I've decided that's a good spot for it. And now you go on and you multiply step 6, which was 19.9, times pi. And I'm going to once again do a voila, and I get 62.49. So I cross that out now. I cross that out now. I'm at 62. Oh, I'm running out of real estate here. 62.49. I'll put it right here. And then you final step, step 8. Hey, thanks for hanging with us. Multiply by 7. Oh, multiply by the radius. The radius was 5, not 7. And I get 312.45. That is what all I need to know. There it is. I'm sorry it's a long video, but students, this is a tough concept. Watch it over a few times. Become familiar with the formula if you need to. Let's zoom out for a second here. I would love to show the formula. The original formula is still there if you want to refer to it. I did some math as I went along. Hopefully that helped you. Tough concept, students, working with cones. Truthfully, I was never a gifted enough math student to need this formula. Maybe you will be. I don't know. We'll see. Have a good one.